So let's get into the other important things about Napoleon. This actually ties into a larger theme of history. So for anybody out there who is actually struggling with history right now and the themes and core understandings of history, you need to know this. The reason why Napoleon was able to take over all of Europe and subjugate a lot of Russia was because of demographics. Now, most history teachers don't talk about demographics, and quite frankly, I don't understand why, because it really is important to talk about. So I'll just give you an idea of the demographic advantage France had over Russia and the rest of Europe. France in the early 1800s was about the size of Texas. Now, here's the thing though. It had 4 times the population of England at 5 million. And it had a population that was actually close to Russia's at that time. So France had the second largest population in Europe. That translates into a lot of bodies for warfare. More production, more economic resources in terms of labor. And Napoleon definitely manipulated those things to his advantage. It's also important to note as well that throughout history, you could argue that the French Revolution, which propelled Napoleon into power, was actually inspired by demography. There's actually a formula that you can use as a historian, and it goes like this. If you have a population which is, let's say, it's more than 30% under the age of 25, and you don't have a political class that responds, you're going to have revolution. Look at Iran in 1979. Look at Russia in 1917 when they overthrew the Tsar. It's inevitable that demography is destiny, and if you have a young enough population and a high enough percentage of people who are disaffected and angry, you're going to have a revolution. And Napoleon was able to rise to power because of that. And then he took advantage of that younger population, manipulated for warfare, and that's why he became so powerful. In a nutshell, that's your core understanding. The other thing that anybody who's studying Napoleon right now needs to know, and I think this is so important, let's simplify it a little bit. There are some key terms that your history teachers are going to ask you to know. The first one is the Code of Napoleon. What you need to know pertaining to the Code of Napoleon is it was Napoleonic law. He reformed the legal system in France and also throughout most of the European countries that he conquered. And what he basically did was he took the French Enlightenment principles from the Revolution, which allowed him to become as powerful as he did because basically he was a child of the Enlightenment. You saw the emergence of a meritocracy, which you rise up based on merit. He was the best general. He became the emperor. And he instilled that in other European countries. So what you need to know about that is basically it was when he reformed the legal system in his empire. He made it more liberal and more enlightened. The other thing that you're going to need to know, another key vocabulary word, is definitely going to be the Congress of Vienna. Now, the Congress of Vienna is important because after Napoleon got defeated for the second time, which also plays into some other vocabulary, which I'll get to in a second, but when he got defeated the second time, every single leader in Europe, it was a concert of European leaders, they got together in Vienna, which is the capital of the Austrian Empire, and basically they hammered out a peace treaty. And it actually led to a cessation of hostilities in Europe for 30 years plus, first time ever. It was led by a count of Austria named Metternich, just so you know. And other key terms are Elba. That was the first island that Napoleon was exiled to. Napoleon actually fled. He escaped, which I think is badass. He actually persuaded some of the prisoners and some of the guards to look the other way to construct a raft to escape back to France after he was exiled and defeated the first time. And when he got back, you had what was known as the 100 Days, where he actually became Emperor of France again, and then he was defeated at Waterloo, which you need to know that was his final battle, by the Duke of Wellington of Britain. So that's your crash course in Napoleon. I hope that helps you out. I can tell you more. In the next lesson, I'm going to go into more details, but those are all the superficial details you need.